And welcome to the Daily Space Weather, folks. Welcome back. I'm your host, Dan, aka smAsho. Today is entitled Sunspot 2765 Sets, New Solar Activity Clock, some Solon.info updates, extreme particle storms. We're going to start things out by looking at the sun. Don't stare directly at the sun, folks. Have the proper instruments like the SDO. Here's a 94 angstroms 48-hour SDO video showing the setting of Sunspot 2765. It has remained a sunspot throughout nearly its entire transition across the Earth-facing portion of the disk. We've got some interesting stories to cover today. Let's move on to helioviewer.org to look at the fields, and there you can see the fields associated with Sunspot 2765, which lives on. And I see a likelihood of some activity rising in the south. This area over here may turn out to be a sunspot. We'll explain the magnetic environment momentarily. And again, we are streaming live on Twitch, so thanks everybody who tunes in over there. If you want to see the videos before they're uploaded to places like YouTube and BitChute, subscribe at twitch.tv/smAsho and join us live. Next, looking at 48 hours from the SDO and 193 angstroms. We see a little bit of anomalous data there and a large vertically oriented coronal hole stretching right across the equator. We saw some big earthquakes kick off too. I'll let that play through a second time before we move on. Interesting cosmology segment to follow, so don't miss that. Next, we've got some custom HelioViewer movies of Sunspot 2765. Here's the view in 131 angstroms, one of the ionized UV spectral states of ionized iron. And here is the 171 angstroms view of the same area. That is one day, 24 hours of Sunspot 2765. KP index has been pegged at 0 for the past 12 hours, as those green bars are 3-hour increments. And the 10.7 centimeter radial flux has actually dropped back down to 69. By the way, we're in the 2 sunniest weeks of the year, or the 2 darkest weeks of the year if you're south of the equator. So join us for our solstice stream, which takes place on Saturday, June 20th. We'll be starting at around 5:15 p.m. Eastern Time, and we are located in Lehigh Valley. So join us for the Solstice Stream 2020. When we feature call-ins, we will allow folks to call in to the smAsho VoIP line. And if you ever want to reach us there, it's country code +1, area code 610-936-9799. Let's take a look at where things are in the solar system at theplanetstoday.com. There's where things will be in a week on the 21st, and it'll be a new moon coming in right after the solstice. How about them apples? New moon on the solstice, making for a dark time in the southern hemisphere and good sleep in the north. And we're going to talk cosmology for a brief moment here, as some more interesting information has come my way and now I'm sending it your way. First of all, Solon.info has updated its information at Solon.info. And one of the things that they're going to put up there is the solar cycle 24 to 25 transition with the 365-day averages. And I would note that Solon.info largely agrees with me, or rather I agree with them. Now, I was forecasting that solar minimum would happen around back here, around September. I was off by 2 months, and I'll take it as a pretty well orchestrated guesstimate. So there's still a lot of argument on the internet about the solar minimum. And once again, I was kind of darn close to being exactly correct on this. And keep in mind, I wasn't using magnetic field information. I was just looking at the stuff that I look at every day on the daily space weather. Let's talk about a transient situation with Cygnus X3. So it looked like it was going to come out of its quiescent state. You can see up here, it was up to around its normal state, which would be like here. And sort of the average state that we see X3 in. And then we saw some very dense transients here on around day 152. And now it has completely dropped off a cliff. Check that out. That is at negative 0.15, which if that were on the historic graph, that would be way down. That would be all the way down about here on this graph. So this activity is this low, historically speaking. And Cygnus X3 is known to move into an active state coming out of quiescent states. So you can see right here, we saw a long time of quiescent and then back into an excited state. Cygnus X3, tail of the swan, otherwise known as Deneb. It's just the most intrinsically bright object visible from Earth in the entire Milky Way galaxy. Let's talk about the new sun clock, which quantifies cycle of extreme space weather with astonishing precision. And this is a complicated graph here, so to speak. So the green dots, this is solar minimum. And when you see this blue area, that is extreme particle events. Actually, those are black dots. So you can see the way the activity, the likelihood of extreme particle storms, much higher around solar maximum than at solar minimum. And we've come off of solar minimum, so now we are getting into the more the higher likelihood of seeing extreme particle events, and that's why we started covering the proton flux, as we expect to see more protons. Now you'll see this story all over the Science Wire today. It was published in SC Chapman, SW McIntosh, Lehman, Geophysical Research Letters on May 30th. So a little late coming up with that one, but let me scroll down the story in case you want to read it while viewing the video. I'll just let that scroll down. Don't worry, folks. If you've got to pause, we'll be here when you get back. That's part of the glory of on-demand video, isn't it? Anyway, this is using about 150 years of information because we do have magnetic field information going back about 150 years. So perhaps another way to view and quantify solar activity. Also, it was brought to my attention yesterday. I'm not sure how it was brought to my attention, but Extreme Particle Storms, The Hostile Sun, which is an ebook that you can download. You'll have to create a login here at IOP Science, and the website is iopscience.iop.org. Just set up a login there, do a search for Extreme Particle Storms, and you can download the PDF. By the way, please don't forget to press like and subscribe on YouTube. Please visit our related content channels if you haven't already done so. And please share the content on your social media, visit our links, and please consider supporting the channel, as we've got a lot of things to do in the year 2020, and we ain't even close to being funded for those things. We are also on BitChute, where we receive hundreds more views per day than we receive on YouTube. Coincidence? I think not. Let's get back to spaced out data. If you get up before dawn, you should be able to see Venus rising before the sun, and man oh man, expect it to be on the bright side. It's the third brightest object in the sky. And right now what's going on over my head at 4:22 Eastern Daylight Time is we've got a pileup of Jupiter and Saturn and Mars and the moon all in the sky at once. So So if you're getting up before dawn, and it's a good time to be doing so, check out the fireworks display as the cosmic pileup occurs and people lose their you-know-what, thinking that the world is going to end today either because of COVID or because of rioting or because of global warming or perhaps because of Nibiru. Please leave a comment. Your favorite scenario for the end of the world. Every time I go to the grocery store and I have a discount on my rewards card, they say, do you want to use your $1? And I said, better use it. Never know when the world might end. Goes X-ray flux is pretty flatlined here. We haven't seen any even B-class flares over the past 3 days. Proton flux is flatlined as well. We're going to keep showing it until we see some activity in it. And then we'll show it even more and talk about what the solar wind consists of. It's primarily hydrogen nuclei, folks. Looking at the real-time solar wind, we see a little spike here. It looks like a little coronal mass ejection type of a thing. Or it could be cosmic ray flux. But it ain't from X3 because X3 has moved into the ridiculous quiet state. Phi angle's around 170 degrees. Probably an indication of a magnetic connection with that coronal hole, but we don't see strong magnetism up here as we see a BT of 4 and a BZ of 0. So a quite equivalent north and south pull on the magnetic field. Solar wind density 2.18 protons per cubic centimeter. Solar wind speed 293 kilometers per second. And check out the weak magnetosphere. It is weak. Today we'll look at pressure and density. First, density. Keep in mind, low density is shown in white. This is 4 hours of data, courtesy University of Michigan. And please leave a comment if you enjoy the way this pane matches my flames. By the way, we use the blue-white hot flames when we're extra insanely angry, and we try not to rage while making the videos. Those flames are a manifestation of rage. And I'm not going to talk about what the rage is from, but check out the weak magnetosphere. Look at how giant the plasma spheres have become. Giant plasma spheres all around the planet. Weak Van Allen belts, as we don't see a significant rise in electron flux, although I'm kind of expecting one. And check it out. Really, really weak magnetosphere. There's that incredibly low pressure, almost as low as we've ever seen it on the channel. Next, looking at ground magnetic perturbations. Looking at the scenario a little closer to home, we don't see a lot of induced magnetism or magnetic magnetism, period. So not a lot of it induced by solar particle forcing and not a lot of it, period. Couple little ground magnetic perturbations during this polar excursion. While we've got 2 north poles and a south pole that's crept off of the Antarctic continent into the southern Indian Ocean. If you weren't aware, watch some of our older videos. Next, looking at the GOES magnetometer to see that we likely are not in the in the south pole current sheet as we forecasted yesterday, because that environment changed with no warning, something that we talk about on the regs. Here's the top view ecliptic plane field plot, and check out the last image. You can see this expansion of the green portion, which is the North Pole oriented current sheet. And if you back up, you can see just around that time there, that's what had me thinking that we were going to be in the South Pole current sheet. But the South Pole either weakened or the North Pole strengthened, or both, or there's some activity south of the solar equator to account for that. So there's the last frame, and it could be anybody's guess now, because if activity subsides or if one of the fields suddenly strengthens, it's anybody's guess as to which polarity current sheet we'd be in. And again, for your new viewers, the red portion is the South Pole current sheet, and the green portion is the North Pole current sheet. Here's a line of sight field plot. And again, keep in mind the magnetic environment can change with no warning. This data is nearly 2 hours old. So my best guess is that we're going to see some activity south of the equator rising. That's the best guess on what's going on there. And I would note the B field, which we talked about pretty in depth in the comments section, shown here in blue, which is a net result of the 2 poloidal fields overlapping tug of war that they're playing on the interplanetary magnetic field. Next, looking at the relativistic electron flux here at solon.info to show you this very, very low level and this very significant downward trend where it's just very, very low levels of electron flux. Now, they've risen up a little bit in the past day. And for you new viewers out there, these N's and M's are noon and midnight local time for the GOES-16 satellite. So that's something to keep an eye on throughout the day. And when I say eye on, the pun is intentional. Here's the total electron content. And we see some anomalies here over Mexico and the Caribbean. Some odd nighttime GPS errors will be coming in around those areas. And you'll see remaining electrons there hanging out all night long in the northern hemisphere. Here's the 6 hours of the ionosphere. And this one's courtesy of Government of Australia Bureau of Meteorology. Ionosphere is looking pretty discharged on the nighttime side and pretty normal on the daytime side. Here's the latest image. That one coming in at 8:15 UT, and you can see how highly discharged the sun side is, only making it up to 8 megahertz there. So a little bit anomalous here on both ends, charged up on the nighttime side, discharged on the daytime side. That's officially an ionospheric anomaly, and no tsunami warning, advisory, watch, or threat have been issued about this downgraded magnitude 6 quake that happened near the Ryukyu Islands. It came in at 1551 yesterday. And let's go down the full list at USGS's earthquake site. Small deep quake at Puerto Rico. Shout out to Peter Schiff. If you're watching the video, please leave a comment. And we'd like to have you on the Diamond Anvil, Too Hard to Smash, one of these days. Next, here's a deep quake at Vanuatu. It's a 5.0 magnitude that came in at 1424. About an hour and a half before that, 6.7 magnitude downgraded to a 6.6 magnitude quake at Japan. So there you go. Deep quake at Vanuatu. 1 hour later, a 4.5 at the Philippines. And 26 minutes after that, a 6.6 at Japan. And that's a deep quake, which means it could be a foreshock. Let's hope not, because if that happened at the surface, that would be over a 7 magnitude, and that could cause tsunamis. Let's check and see the location of it. It is out in the ocean, near the island of Naze. I believe it's how it's pronounced. Don't quote me. I'm not an expert on Eastern languages. I do know a little Korean, believe it or not, as I took Taekwondo with now Grandmaster John Chung Kim, who I believe is the second highest ranking Taekwondo black belt on Earth. He's basically just waiting for a guy to die before he becomes the highest ranking black belt in Taekwondo on the planet. John Chung Kim. Check out Kim's Black Belt Academy if you've never heard of that. Check out the deep quake at the Northern Mariana Islands. That is epic. 6.2 magnitude at 622 kilometers depth. That would be nearly an 8 magnitude quake if it happened at the surface. There's a location of that. Over 600 kilometers depth, folks. And it's in that rift zone directly south of Japan, directly south of Tokyo. Let's hope no tsunamis are generated from that area, as a tsunami from here could strike both Manila and Tokyo with the same event. Something I don't want to see happen. What about you? And let's get back to the list here. So a little uptick in volcanoes here. In earthquakes here. And just scrolling up the list. Please leave us a comment if we leave anything out, as we do occasionally miss stuff. Next, the volcano rundown includes Kluchevskoye, producing a 20,000-foot ash plume there. Shivaluch, back on the list as it explodes, flight level 17,000 there. Popocatépetl dissipated its volcanic ash. Sabancaya has not. It's exploding. Continuous ash emissions are producing a flight level of 20,000. Please do not attempt to do a back handspring over the caldera. Have you been sick of hearing about this nonsense? Yeah, me too. And let me take a moment to thank our subscribe stars, as well as our Patreons, the real source of funding for the content. Whether you're an associate or an assistant producer, we appreciate your support. And never hesitate to email us at our secret email address that we provide only for patrons. I'll have to post again soon about that, so that we're not using certain big tech's servers to exchange information. So yeah, thanks again, everybody. You are super integral in terms of the support of the channel. Whether you're sharing the content on your social media, we greatly appreciate that. So we are trying to gain a little bit of traction here, and it's why we're doing things like collabo videos with other channels and so on. So again, thanks everybody who's supporting the channel, whether it's via comments, via sharing, etc. Will Joe Biden's running mate be this woman? Gretchen Whitmer? Hey Mary, what do you think about that? You think that's going to increase Joe Biden's popularity? Picking Gretchen Whitmer as a running mate? Oh, man. So, yeah, the 48-year-old mother of two would add youth to the 77-year-old former vice president's campaign. She's a fresh face. Look at that fresh face. Don't you just love that fresh face? I mean, don't you just want to draw a giant purple mustache on that fresh face? Since she is a complete villain, according to mostly everybody that lives in Michigan. Do you follow us on Instagram? If not, you may not see this uncropped, no-filter image of the sun I took yesterday. It was so good I had to put it up twice, once cropped and once uncropped. And by the way, here's a public service message. Being essential means we get to continue to guarantee society continues to function. Meanwhile, geniuses are undermining all of it intentionally to, quote, make the world a better place. All humans are essential. Everything matters. Even the humans who are currently so mentally challenged that believe that they are a left-wing anarchist and that that's a thing are essential, even though they're complete COVIDiots. By the way, we also talked about toroidal versus poloidal fields, and it was such a good comment thread in the YouTube comments that I had to talk about how the toroidal fields are simply a net effect of the constant tug of war that are the poloidal fields. For instance, the Gong 2 line of sight field plot shows the toroidal fields in blue, and it's entirely the result of the interaction and overlapping of the magnetism of the poloid fields. In fact, the BTBZ is a representation of this. A negative BZ means more South Pole, a positive BZ means more North Pole, contributing to the total, the BT, which is the toroidal interplanetary magnetic field in which we live. Sometimes we like to put up screenshots of comments like that if something relevant is said. Also, please check us out at smAsho.com/forum. We've set this up to run itself, basically. And thanks everybody who's created logins over there. We have an unbelievable number of logins, as we tripled our number of registered users about 2 weeks ago. And we're amazed. We're well over 15,000 views here. smAsho.com/forum. There are forums on cosmology, Earth and geophysics, general science. The sun has its own forum topic for obvious reasons. There's a new users section and a free-for-all section. And thanks to our newest member, Grasshopper. You snatch the stone from my hand, Grasshopper. And do not asphyxiate yourself while masturbating with a belt, Grasshopper. Let's look at the headlines on Zero Hedge. Republic of Chaz begins reparations. White participants pressured to give blacks $10 each. By the way, a little bit of background on me. I'm white, and my great-grandfather was from Scotland. He was imported into the U.S., which makes me part of an immigrant family. Yeah, my great-grandfather was imported by the Bethlehem Steelers to play soccer. His name was David Carson. He had a 78-inch reach and was an amazing goalie, apparently. So, yeah, I'm not feeling the pressure to give anybody much of anything. And by the way, my privilege has left me broke. So, yeah, I'm white and broke. Congratulations on my white privilege. Let's look at more headlines. Twitter reinstates Zero Hedge after admitting it made an error. Oh, well done, Twitter. Well done. By the way, new issues happening in Atlanta as they burned down a Wendy because some guy got shot in the Wendy's drive-thru after grabbing a taser during a scuffle with police after falling asleep in the drive-thru and showing up as apparently intoxicated. How do you prepare for a How do you prepare for a revolution? Please leave a comment. Narrative control. Oh man, cops across the country are on the verge of quitting. And by the way, if you'd like to defund police, please leave a comment. If you could be the police, if you're capable of being the police, you have a better excuse to want them defunded than if not. However, if you're not capable of being the police, perhaps you don't really want them defunded, because what are you going to do when the rioters show up on your doorstep? Let's talk about this article here. Narrative control operations escalate. Have you noticed a little bit of propaganda, nonsense, and pure lies on the internet by companies like Google, Twitter, and Facebook, where reality itself is being censored? Wikipedia is completely guilty of this also, as there is complete propagandistic nonsense on Wikipedia's website. So read everything with a discerning eye, folks, because there's a narrative that's being created artificially by a bunch of dumb people who think you are dumb people. As the American press destroys itself. Oh yes. Have you noticed that there's a little bit of a lack of integrity with journalists nowadays, especially mainstream ones like NBC, ABC, CBS, Fox News, MSNBC, CNN, etc.? Yeah. Same here. It's part of the reason why we have the channel, because we are able to go through ridiculous articles and cite them as sharticles because they put a little grain of truth surrounded by a bunch of nonsense, and then sheeple believe it. That's a Matt Taibbi article, by the way. And here's the map for the U.S., and check it out. We've still got frost advisories. Less than a week from summer in places like southern Oregon, northern Nevada, and the North Peninsula of Michigan. If you're wondering what this yellow zone is, it is an emergency child abduction situation. They're looking for Kylie Ann White, a white female, 16 years old, 5'8", 120 pounds, blonde hair, hazel eyes with pink braces. If you've seen her as she's abducted a child, please call 972-204-7002. That's 972-204-7002. If you've seen 16-year-old Kylie White with some abducted child, she's got pink braces. She was last seen in the 500 block of Love Lane in Royce County, Texas. Let's get back to some data by looking at the jet stream. There are the jet streams of the eastern world, and they are doubled up in both hemispheres. Here are the jet streams of the western world. Extreme meridional jet stream flow at its finest. It looks just like a diagram of extreme meridional jet stream flow in the north, and in the south, it's a combination of doubled up and extreme. So there's that. Next, we're going to look at the pressure maps here on windy.com, who has a great mobile app, by the way. If you don't have windy.com's mobile app installed on your smartphone, you may want to, as it is a delight. We're going to let this advance via the GFS forecast into tomorrow around noon. There's where we think things will be at 1 p.m., actually, Eastern Daylight Time. And if you're wondering where we're located, because you're a new viewer, I am located in Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania, along with smAsho staff, which is the live-in girlfriend. Shout out to Christy, a.k.a. smAsho staff. She is feeling better, by the way. Thanks, everybody, for your well wishes. Here are the water vapor maps for Africa and Europe. Here are the water vapor maps for the Far East and Oceania. Next, lightning maps here at lightningmaps.org. We see quite a lot of lightning, especially across the Caribbean. And there was enough lightning to crash the site, apparently. What's up with that? Never saw that happen before. Lightningmaps.org has officially crashed. Let's try to refresh one more time here. And there we go. They are back. Well done, blitzortung.org. Well done, blitzortung.org. Cheers. Or should I say, tschüss. Tschüss. And is there any lightning striking in Germany? Let's see. Looks like the Czech Republic. Wow, that's an extreme storm right there. Look at that. Hopefully not too much damage happening there, as that's the kind of lightning strikes that are associated with extreme wind events and damaging hail and so on. We've got some striking in the U.S. too. Shout out to Santa Fe. There's thunder rolling in. And if you're in Santa Fe, go out and look to the northwest. You may see an interesting light show near the Valles Caldera National Preserve. Next, looking at the Doppler radar map here for the U.S. And there's some wintry mix and some snow falling in the places like Idaho, Montana, and Washington. Once again, is it a year without a summer? Please leave a comment. Next, looking at the water vapor map for the U.S., we see an upper level low here descending toward the south of the southern tip of Lake Michigan there. Let's zoom in. Just the tip. Just the tip, folks. Here's a tip. Understand atmospheric physics by watching our channel. And we may start doing meteorology videos. It's entirely possible. And there's a great view of that counterclockwise rotating upper level low, which is set to weaken and be rather stagnated in place as a result of the surrounding massive dry air. And hey, Smash Team, thanks for tuning in. Stay tuned for bonus segments. Remember to share on your social media, leave a comment, press like and subscribe. Tell your friends, tell your foes, tell your science noobs, and tell your science pros. Sunspot 2765 is still a sunspot. There it is. Here are the magnetic fields, and there's the most recent update of them. And the likelihood of any sort of significant X-ray flares or coronal mass ejections has now dropped, as it is nearly in a setting mode. Should make for some great 171 angstrom views over the next day or two. And let's close things out with one more view of the local yellow dwarf. How about 304 angstroms in terms of a 48-hour SDO video? Remember to stare at the sun. Use the proper instruments. Don't drink no matter how much the government drives you to want to, or no matter how much COVIDiots drive you to drink. I'm drinking coffee. Allow me to vanish. And I'm going to check the chat real quick. No chats left today. Again, let me remind you, if you want to see the videos live, check them out at twitch.tv/smashomash. We stream live on Twitch because the platform is fantastic. And you can see those filaments there associated with Sunspot 2765 look like they're collapsed back onto the chromosphere, and we have not seen any coronal mass ejections. I check daily. No matter what people like Ben Davidson say, I really don't care. Anyway, we're out. Thanks for tuning in. Remember, stare at the sun, don't drink, and if you do, don't drive. Welcome to the Neo-Renaissance, and may that solar wind be at your back.